People would often mention to me their amazement that I could have 5 children and not be a nervous wreck. How did I maintain my calm appearance? The answer is simple. I had learned early on that my children had angels who would let me know when I needed to take action. When Matthew was a baby, I wanted to get a picture of him smiling. He wasn't 6 weeks old yet, but I had seen glimpses of him smile, and I wanted proof. So I laid him down on a pillow on the kitchen table and began to make noises and funny faces, trying to elicit a smile from him. Then he got the hiccups. I knew he never smiled when he had the hiccups. So I turned away to wash the breakfast dishes. As I was washing the dishes, a voice shouted into my head, "Look at your baby." I turned to see Matthew rolling off the pillow. As I moved towards him, he continued to roll off the table head first. I managed to grab one foot, just barely, preventing him from hitting his head on the floor. Another time, I was in California at a family reunion. Again, I was washing dishes, and the voice in my head said, "Go find Eric." Along with that voice was a panicked butterfly feeling in my stomach. I looked all over the house and then all over the yard, front and back. I told my family that Eric was nowhere in the yard or in the house. My dad immediately got in the car and went down the street one way, and Donna got in the car and went down the street the other way. 3 blocks away, a little boy was seen walking along all by himself. The family invited him into their front yard, which had a low picket fence. Grandpa found him happily playing there with the children in that family. When Eric saw him, he said, "Grandpa," and ran and gave him a hug. We talked about it later and realized that the older cousins had gotten permission to walk to the mall. Eric had followed them unobserved, but couldn't keep up. In the fall of that year, we moved to Sugarland Run. Anna was in kindergarten and walked with her older brothers to the elementary school. I heard that voice in my head, "Go find Eric." And I remembered that he had followed his cousins to the mall, and I thought perhaps he had followed his siblings to school. So I set out in that direction. I found him on the street corner, happily talking to a sweet lady who had prevented him from crossing the street 3 blocks from home. In the spring of that year, again, the voice in my head said, "Go find Eric." He couldn't have followed the kids to school. They were home. And he wasn't in the playground that was right next to our house. So I began to search. I finally found him walking away with 2 young men on the far side of our lake, talking happily with them. I don't know what the young man's intention was, but from the panicked butterfly feeling in my stomach and the voice in my head, I suspect that their intentions were not honorable. Later, when I had to go back to work, I spent a lot of time at school doing lesson plans and trying to figure out my job. I was worried about spending so much time away from my family. I prayed and expressed my concern to my Heavenly Father, and the voice came into my head, "They are being watched over." Years later, my next-door neighbor told me that she and her husband had spent many hours watching the kids climb the tree that bordered our properties. She said, "We were there in case they should fall to help out, but they never fell." The result was that my children grew up being extremely independent and fearless, and I was able to enjoy motherhood with the knowledge that if their guardian angels needed help, they would let me know.